All right, hello there, thrill seekers. It's me and Ziggy in the sunbeam. You can see him enjoying the sunbeam. It's a little bit chilly out here, but he's liking the sunbeam. So I'm calling today's video I Don't Hate Donald Trump, and that's in honor of the San Francisco Zen Center, who last time I checked had on their webpage a Dharma talk called "I Hate Donald Trump." So I just want to counter that. I always seem to want to counter the San Francisco Zen Center, but anyway, it's also because of a piece put out on the Lion's Roar website. Let's see, what's it called? It's called A Time for Bodhisattvas, and it came out on the November 6th, 2024, and the introduction says, "It is now time to ask ourselves, what would a bodhisattva do? And let that be our guide and inspiration. Lion's Roar offers us the wisdom of leading Buddhist teachers, leaders, and activists as we contemplate how to meet a dark time with the compassion, courage, and skill of bodhisattvas dedicated to the welfare of all beings." Aren't they nice? Lion's Roar, by the way, in case you don't know, is a big Buddhist magazine. Do they still even print those? I haven't seen a Lion's Roar magazine in ages, but I think it's a magazine. They're definitely still online. So they know where I am. I've written for Lion's Roar before. They know how to contact me, but they didn't contact me for this one. So I thought I'd give my thoughts on their piece. Let me just read you a few of these. Here's one from someone named Akaya Windwood. Never heard of her. I think it's a her. Anyway, let us give ourselves and those around us time to grieve and mourn. Let us reach out and care for the most vulnerable among us. The path forward is and always has been through love and community. We will get there. I know we will. And Ben Connolly, who I met a few years ago, says, "Walking home from morning meditation, the streets shrouded in mist, I touch my sadness, anger, and fear, open to the anguish of the world, and find connection there. I value compassion, mutual support, creativity, and nonviolence, so I turn towards cultivating compassion, mutual support, creativity, and nonviolence." Okay, a bit repetitive. There we go. And here's one from, I think, Rhonda McGee, mindfulness teacher and law professor. Don't know her. "Let the tears fall, if they may. Let the heartbreak be acknowledged and felt, if you feel it. I am here with you, feeling the whole range. Let us wrap our arms around our hearts and feel what we feel. Sadness, anxiety, fear, and disappointment." And here's Joan Halifax, Zen teacher. Roshi Joan Halifax. I don't know why they forgot that. "I refuse to be defeated by ignorance." Ignorance. "We can call out the multiple causes and conditions, and there are so many, and right now we have to come alongside a lot of anger and anguish and then foster healthy solidarity to do what we can to mitigate the suffering that so many are facing and will face, at the same time remembering," oh my God, this is one long run-on sentence that I'm not going to finish because it just goes on and on. Here's one from the Brooklyn Zen Center. This was a email they sent out that somehow I ended up getting a hold of. Let's see. It says, "Keep uprooting the deep tendrils of domination, culture, and oppression in ourselves and in society. Keep challenging powers that seek to dominate and dehumanize. Keep looking closely at what our truest values are. Blah, blah, blah. This absolutely does not mean we shouldn't be angry. I'm really angry." This is what it says in there. I'm not saying that myself. "Or despairing, or numb, or fearful. These and many other feelings are all legitimate responses to violence. And the question we can ask ourselves is how we can feel into this and support one another," and blah, 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 blah. And let's see. Here's another gem from Barry Magid, who I had a run-in with about 10 years ago. If you've ever seen the movie Brad Warner's Hardcore Zen, you've seen the guy called me an arrested adolescent. That's Barry Magid. "Despite many cogent criticisms I've read of the Democratic Party's election strategy, I can't help but feel that the ultimate responsibility remains with those who voted for Trump. No matter how legitimate their grievances are, they opted for a stupid and dangerous solution to their problems, a solution based on racism, misogyny, and nationalism. blah, 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 blah. You can't say they didn't know who Trump was when they chose him. They wanted this grandiose, toxic, masculine bravado, electing the schoolyard bully, thinking he would be their protector. The choice was clear. They say everything happens for a reason. Sometimes the reason is you've been stupid and have made bad choices. So that's what Barry Magid, who called me an arrested adolescent, says. And I'm telling you, that sounds more like an arrested adolescent to me than a lot of the stuff I've put out. But that's just my opinion. I do not like Barry Magid. But let's keep going, because there's things I want to say, and there's a commentary I want to make about this. Because here's my response to all that, and there's so much more of the same stuff, and I'm leaving a lot out, but it's all pretty uniform, except for one exception, which I'm going to get to in a minute. But let me first tell you what I feel about this stuff. Now, one of the easiest teachings in Zen for most people to understand, and one of the few easy ones for most people to understand, is that there is no future and there is no past. There is only the now. Pretty easy teaching. And so when you do this kind of thing, when you write this kind of stuff and put it out there publicly and stoke up people's fear and depression and anger and feelings of helplessness and all that, you're not really commenting on the future, which is what these people seem to think they're doing. You're just putting a lot of depression, anger, and fear and rage into the present moment. And I don't think that's a good thing, and I don't think it's the right time for doing more of that. You know, life is hard enough without some spiritual master telling you that you have to be depressed and angry and outraged. The other thing I think is important, and this is my advice to some of these people who've put these statements out, is last I saw, and I don't know, I've come to really distrust statistics, but last I saw, I think it was 65% of the electorate went for the Republican candidates, and they also majority of the House and the Senate. So I wouldn't be so confident if I were an active Zen teacher teaching a sangha of whoever wants to come in and join me. I wouldn't be so confident that everybody I'm talking to agrees with my choice in who I voted for. I'm telling you, there's a lot of people in those sanghas, in the very sanghas these people are talking to or supposedly speaking on behalf of, who don't feel this way at all. And so alienating them, is that a good idea? Is that what you want to do? And the other thing is, being condescending and smugly superior is not really a way to win over hearts and minds. So however you feel about this stuff, coming across like a lot of these people do as the smug, superior, everybody is stupid except for me kind of attitude, and you are stupid for what you did and who you voted for, like Barry Magid said, I don't think that's going to win you any support, and I don't think that's going to change anybody's minds. What that usually does is makes people more entrenched in their attitudes. So all you're doing is, instead of winning these people over, you're venting your frustration at them and calling them idiots and sexist and misogynist and whatever else you're calling them. And they're not going to like that. Nobody likes hearing that, and it's going to make them more entrenched in whatever they believe anyway. And for those of you who might believe in the law of attraction, and by the way, I don't, but I know there's a lot of folks out there in this kind of sort of American spirituality world who believe in the law of attraction. Well, why attract all this negativity by putting it out there? And even if you're not believing in the law of attraction, which I think is kind of nonsense, you're still setting yourself up to see everything through this lens of negativity, and I don't think that's a good idea. Now, I told you I would get to the exceptions, and I do want to highlight one of them, actually two of them, but one from a Zen teacher and one from a rather surprising source. Here's Norman Fisher. And Norman Fisher's, the beginning of his statement to Lion's Roar is pretty much the same as everybody else's. But he ends on a very interesting note, which I think is really good. How a person makes a decision is a mystery, but it seems clear that tens of millions of people who voted for Trump were not voting for the Trump the Democrats know. They didn't vote to further restrict women's reproductive rights or usher in a fascistic, racist, homophobic, sexist regime. They voted for protection, fairer economics, a narrower focus on them and their problems. Okay, maybe I would have put that differently, but a focus on the actual problems people are really facing these days. Let's hope the Trump that they decided on is closer to what we get than the Trump the Democrats know. We won't know until it unfolds, which is exactly right. Thank you, Norman Fisher, for being a voice of reason amongst all this. And the other rather surprising one I saw came from Paul Stanley of Kiss, the rhythm guitarist of Kiss, one of my favorite bands in the world, honestly, truly. He says, "It's over. If your candidate lost, it's time to learn from it, accept it, and try to understand why. There will be no building bridges to those you don't agree with by being condescending," I think that's what I said, "insulting, talking at them, or removing yourself. If your candidate won, and I think this is an important message too, it's time to understand that those who don't share your views also believe they are right and love this country as much as you do. The enemy is not our fellow Americans. It is anyone and everyone who seeks to divide us." Thank you, Paul Stanley, and thank you, Norman Fisher. Because, look, what happened, happened. And who got elected, got elected. And one of the things I did, and here's my little advice for you. In 2016, when he was elected before, I was in the same boat as most of these Buddhist teachers. I was in exactly the same frame of mind as most of these people posting on Lion's Roar. You might not believe it because you've heard that Brad is like a MAGA extremist and everything else, but I'm not. I was scared, I was upset, and I was angry just like them. But in my case, I had my nephew. And my nephew at the time was a big Trump supporter. He liked Trump and he believed Trump was good for the country. And I couldn't ignore the fact that he's not an idiot, he's not a misogynist, he's not a racist, he's a Jewish kid who grew up in Knoxville, Tennessee, which, predisposes one to understanding what racism is all about. He understood all of that, and yet he supported Trump. So I dove in. I did something that Nishijima Roshi recommended to me one time, and this was not in terms of a political thing. I don't want to really get into what it was, but the advice he gave me about something that I was very concerned about, which was similar in a lot of ways, was look at hated information. I remember how he put it because he had an idiosyncratic way of speaking English and not being a native speaker, a guy who taught himself English by listening to cassette tapes when he was in his 50s, I think. He bought a set of cassette tapes, teach yourself English tapes. So he spoke English like somebody who'd learned late in life from teach yourself English cassette tapes. He said, look at hated information. And that's what I decided to do. I decided to look at the hated information. I decided to look at what these people were actually saying, including my nephew, including lots of people on the internet, and find out what was really going on rather than just getting third-hand information of somebody telling me that this guy said something. And I found out that a lot of what I was hearing about the man was not true. And look, I don't like defending the guy. I'm not a particular fan of Trump. And again, in spite of what everybody is telling you on the internet, I really am not. I would have voted for Tulsi Gabbard, if you want to know the fact. And this is not me saying this as a Buddhist, and all Buddhists should vote for Tulsi Gabbard, of course. That would be stupid. But that's who I liked. And she just got, kicked out of the race, basically. But I looked at the information that these people were putting out themselves and what the man himself said, and I realized that I was being lied to. Not that he's a fantastic angel of a person and he's the hero going to save us all, but that I was being lied to. And as a lot of people have said, I think Bill Maher just said this recently, there's plenty to dislike about our new president-elect. Why make stuff up? But they do. They make stuff up all the time. I just saw this video, which I thought was hilarious, which is about a dozen, I'm not exaggerating, there might be 15 or 20 times of Donald Trump on video denouncing racism, denouncing white supremacy, saying that he has nothing to do with it, he wants nothing to do with those people, and then commenters from MSNBC and Kamala Harris and Joe Biden saying Donald Trump has never denounced white supremacy. Like, yes, he has. So that's just one example. And again, I don't want to defend the guy, but here's the thing. There's no reason to wallow in depression and despair. I actually kind of liked the way Joan Halifax wound up her statement, because she starts off by being very, arrogant and saying, I will not be conquered by ignorance. Yeah, as if you have no ignorance in you, Joni. She winds up by saying, let's do what we can to make things better. Let's do what we can to make the world better. Look, I actually believe in American democracy. I have lived outside of American democracy for a good portion of my life. I lived in a totalitarian state, which was ostensibly a democracy, which was Kenya, which was basically a one-party totalitarian state at the time, where you didn't have freedom of speech. And I was a child, but I was well aware of that aspect of it. And then I lived in Japan, which has a democracy, but the same party, a very conservative party, has won every election since 1947 or whenever they first started having free elections again after World War II. So pretty much, and I believe in American democracy, and I think if you don't like what the president is doing, do something about it, and don't be sitting here going, oh my God, the fascists have taken over, everybody should be depressed and sad. That doesn't help anything, doesn't help anyone or anything, and that's my message, and I'm sorry I had to say it, and I know at least a few people who write to me regularly are going to tell me I'm wrong, and that's fine. You can go and tell me I'm wrong. In fact, you can put a comment right below this video telling me I'm wrong right now if you want. But I am going to quit right now while I'm ahead and before I say anything really stupid. And just tell you that if you still want to donate to me, which, there's people on Twitter saying, oh, Brad Warner's just saying this conservative stuff to get more donations. No, I'm not. Because it's not. You start saying things that are even slightly conservative to an audience of American Buddhists, you think that's going to get you donations? No. But if you want to send me a donation, you can go to the URL that you're seeing below, which is hardcorezen.info/donate. That is hardcorezen.info/donate. That's where you can find my PayPal and Patreon accounts. That's my main way of making a living, and I appreciate your support. But as always, you don't got to support me if you don't want to support me. All right, we will see you next time. Have a good time all the time. Bye. Ziggy in a sunbeam, I know, it's serious. Yeah, Ziggy, he's got his Ultraman neck scarf or whatever you call that, bandana on that we bought him in Japan. He's enjoying the sunbeam. All right, Ziggy, I'm going to go in and edit. You don't have to come in with me if you don't want to.